Like, I want to work with you, and and I want you to feel comfortable to say whatever you want.
Oh, yeah.
And when there's something at the end that you're like, hey, I don't like that came up, I'll cut it out.
Yeah.
I'll be 100% frank with you. It would hurt me to do so because I think for the audience, like, what I want to give them is as much genuineness as possible. Like, that's all we can sell anymore.
Oh, yeah.
In a world that's totally false and fake and BS, the only thing I can assure and sell an audience is genuine, intimate conversation. And so if something comes up, it's because it was supposed to. It was part of the train of thought and promoted stuff that I think would resonate with people. But also, when you show your heart and you're a little vulnerable, we've created a society that makes us think that it's going to come back and bite us in the butt, and I got to be worried about it.
Like the internet, the internet never forgets. I don't agree with that. If you're small enough, the internet forgets pretty quickly, real quickly.
It doesn't even know you exist.
Yeah.
Until you get picked up by SNL, and then they'll find a podcast from 15 years ago where you said a word.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't exist until you do.
Until someone
and
wants
then you
got
to worry about your dollhouse tweet from 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's getting better.
100%.
I think that's getting a little better.
Because everybody that is now dealing with the policy, at least at a younger age, 30, 35-year-olds, people that are in government or in positions of power that lived the boom of Facebook, they're now seeing it was our boomer parent that didn't have Facebook that said, if you get caught with a Solo cup, you'll never work again in your life.
Yeah.
And then it took all of us with Solo cups and Facebook to get to that position that we're like, yeah, I'm never going to fire somebody because they took a picture with a Solo cup.
Yeah, so now the one thing I wasn't prepared for, when I go back on, I don't use Facebook very often. But when I go back on it every now and then, it shows me memories of what I used to post. I cringe so hard.
Oh my God, dude!
So hard. It's real bad. So I didn't know about this until I had a girlfriend several years ago, and we'd harass each other back and forth. And she said, "Oh man, I saw this person posted X, Y, and Z," and I'm like, "That's fucking retarded. Who posts that?" It's like, "Well, it's you." Showed me the screenshot. I'm like, oh my God. Oh Jesus, that one's out there.
Man,
so I go,
she set you up.
Oh man, it was embarrassing. Just by myself too. So she could have hosed me with every one of my friends. It was bad. So ever since then, every time I see a memory come up, I'm like, all right, we gotta delete that. There's been one I've ever seen. It's like, you know what? I got a new puppy. You know what? Hell yeah, I did get a new puppy. I can't cringe. It's the cringe. It's black or white. If I cringe at it, it's gone. It's out of here. If I don't cringe, all right, it can
what
stay.
Is that a sentiment to more than anything besides growth? I say this on the podcast all the time, and this is a snapshot in time of this person today.
Yeah.
And right now, I think this is the most brilliant I've ever been. Also, because I'm being compared to an idiot 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
But the guy next year, 5 years from now, and 10 years from now is going to look at this person sitting here right now and go, that kid was a moron.
Yeah.
That's called growth.
Yep.
And if we don't allow for a society that promotes people to grow outside of their ignorances, then not only are you preserving a totally ignorant society, but then you are going to damn anybody that tries to grow out of that.
Yeah. That's why I think everyone needs someone to just call them out on their bullshit. Just like everyone. No one is immune to it. You absolutely need that person to just go, all right, this is bullshit. Stop. You're looking ridiculous. We don't have enough shame in this society.
Goodness.
Not enough shame.
Can we make a real, I don't know, outlandish point here, and this might trigger people, but I'm going to make the claim that there's small, inappropriate situations, small value to bullying. And that I'm going to use one example. And we're going to get to the questions.
Give me an example.
But as a Disney adult, right?
All right.
I'm in law school. This is a professional school. That's what it claims itself to be. So they're not only trying to craft you in academia, but they're also trying to craft you into being a professional. So if you're late, you can't enter the room. If you need to go to the bathroom, you can't come back unless it's like an emergency type of thing. Like if you're a habitual bathroom person at 120, that's a problem. But if it's your one time in a month, they'll let it slide, right? So they're trying to craft you into being a professional, taking these things serious. Your attire was really scrutinized. And we had a girl. Now, before we get to her, to give an idea of what law school is, very few of the people go straight from college right into law school. The vast majority of that population are older adults that are trying to rebrand their life, and they're trying to, see if they could climb into a new profession. So a lot of these people have wives, they have kids. The minority are people, that go straight into it from college. So here's a girl who's like 33. It's our first year of law school, and she worked at Universal. She's a Disney adult. Now, she would show up to class in an R2-D2 dress. So her dress, it's a dress, but it's also R2-D2.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
She's also a very nice person. When you talk to her and you get into the political discourse, she's no idiot, and she knows what she's a very fun person to talk to. She has a lot to offer, but was almost instantly ostracized by the community because we can't point and laugh, so we quietly snicker behind your back. And I believe we're shortchanging people. We are cheating people from the social redirection, the social correction of, yeah, maybe I don't need to wear that dress to school because it makes me, and I'm not saying norms need to be law and we need to use that to like make everybody the same. But also, if you're going to sit there and be in a world where you want to assimilate, but you also want to be individual and unique, you got to try to find some middle ground.
Yeah. Well, so let me take this in a positive direction.
Yeah.
So instead of shaming people to like kind of conform, shame people to kind of fix their shit. So here's an easy one. So at work, my desk is right within eyesight of the bathroom. So I see people coming in and out of that bathroom all the time. All right, not a problem. Sometimes they'll come up and they'll talk to me at the desk. Every now and then you see a fly down. I have no more. I personally don't have the shame just to go, put your fly back up. Because what's the negative side of that's going to happen? Someone's like, oh, you're looking at my dick? No. It flies down and it's distracting. Put it back up. And it's like, is anyone going to think less of me because I helped them? If anything, I'll be like, yeah, I can help. I'm almost at this point where I'm going to start telling people their breath's bad. Because you get someone who's like bad breath, just reeks.
Man.
Now, do you go to the crowd and be like, this guy, his breath stinks, this guy, or just be like, pull him aside, like, hey, take a minute, get some Listerine, brush your teeth.
Well, so let's be real, okay? My breath stinks. The worst biological joke God could have ever pulled on me was that I can't smell it. So my breath stinks and I don't know.
Yeah.
My flies down, I don't know anybody who through fashion chooses to have their fly down, right? So all of those people that have their fly down are doing it out of ignorance. No, so they're walking around. I think about this all the time. I'm playing golf. My shorts have a sweaty ass track right down the crack, right? Yeah. I don't know about it. Part of me is like, at this rate, on hole 11, I can't change it.
No.
So part of me is like, I don't want to know because I'm stuck in this world and it's only going to make me more miserable. So we got to acknowledge that the person with the sweaty butt crack or the fly down or the smelly breath doesn't really want to be in that situation, like in the outs. Same goes for the person with an awkward dress or an attire, right? Yeah. It's one of those, if I knew this was laughable, I don't think I would choose it. If you would choose it, then you're naturally ostracized as it is, and you're not at the lunch table with the cool kids. So it doesn't matter. But for the person that actually wants to assimilate with people, I don't need to change you. You don't need to change me. But I want to be able to go to the lunch table and be with each other and laugh. If I want to be in that social scenario, I feel like it's owed to me to let me know that this is a laughable attire. How do you go about that? If I have stinky breath, I want you to pull me aside and go, yo, man, you got stinky breath. And at that point, I go, I'm not mad. I'm actually praising you for telling me that.
See, I think that's mostly the reaction. But if you're going like...
But if it's something that I'm intimately...
If it's a choice. It's like you're
how do you go about that?
Clashing. I sometimes...
Part of it is a laugh. But also, I'm with you. I like that the crux of your position is you're not going to get positive change by putting people down.
Yeah.
So how do you socially redirect? Because there's an instinct. We've been tribes for so long. When you want to be a part of the tribe, what is a norm? Or let's talk about this. What is comedy? What makes something laughable? What makes something interesting in the frame of comedy? It's that it's different.
Yeah.
We have norms, and the thing that makes it comedy is that it's outside.
Yep.
So one, instinctively by definition, this is comedy. But then also, how do I go about redirecting you back into the tribe? And I'm not saying you can't wear that. There's plenty of other people that are like, I'm so bad and independent, I'm going to wear this and sit at your lunch table.
Yeah.
But I would make the argument that the person that's socially cool and then wears the R2-D2 dress has no problem sitting at the table, the lunch table, because they assimilate with all the other people and everything else. We see the world the same. The things that make us laugh or sad are all the same. So I think this individual example becomes a scenario the moment you're not just wearing a weird dress, but then you got a lot of other things that kind of make you weird. Yeah. And this would be something that could help.
I think it might be a self-awareness thing.
Yeah.
At that point, so if you're going balls to the wall in the lawyer office, you have the bright yellow polka dot dress, and it's a choice, and you know it. You understand you're self-aware. I think that's different than maybe I'm going to try a fashion risk and see what people say. I think there's two different modes of that. It's how self-aware are you with that? It's like the bad breath thing. You're not self-aware. You don't know. So you're embarrassed and you want people to tell you about it.
Wow. So if the crux of all of this is self-awareness, and clearly the person that's falling victim to it is at a lack of self-awareness, what is the one most empathetic, but then also the most socially promotive way of bringing to the attention of self-awareness?
That's a tough one. That might be different. It might be different for everyone.
Boom.
And man, you gotta know, because there's like again.
You know what? You know what you could default to that works every time? Pointing and laughing.
What the fuck is she wearing? Oof. Oof. Imagine walking into a room and you think you're cool new shirt, cool new pants, cool new shoes.
Yeah.
And you walk into a room and you're thinking, all right, I know it's a risk. This is different for me. And then people just like laugh at you. Oh. Oof. Maybe that should just be the socially.
That's what I was going to say, dude. If that's what's getting me giddy and it's also got the whole room laughing at me, then I need to know that what's exciting me is also laughable.
Yeah.
Because then I either need to do internal reflection and go, do I really want it that bad?
Yeah.
Because do you know think about how many people have like their secret, what is it? Like, affections. Like, I love this show. I love this game.
You see it a lot with anime, like a lot of anime. And everyone's got the anime they like, and then all of a sudden there's like, ooh, you start going downhill. It's like, maybe I'm not going to let people know I watch this. Everyone's got it. Well, it doesn't have, I guess, anime. I think a lot of people hit on the anime, but there's definitely a hobby you just go.
So let's make the point when I want to make the argument for the point and laugh or the social redirection. It isn't because I want you to eliminate this R2-D2 dress from your attire or your wardrobe totally. It's trying to bring to your awareness that there's a time and a place. Always be you. Always fight for your independence. But like you're in law school, in a professional school, like R2-D2 dress ain't the place. But also, when you go to a Star Wars dance at Disneyland, or your buddy's throwing a BYOB party for a Star Wars theme, we're all going to watch all 9 movies.
Just going out to the bar like that.
Yeah.
Like, you
Let's
see someone
agree the bar's different than the bar you're testing. If you were to sit down for the bar exam in an R2-D2 dress, people are going to think they're all in pajamas.
Well, here might be a strategy on this. So I've had
distract people.
So here second time I took the ACT, I had an attractive woman in front of me. She had a whale tail, just
strategy,
like bright pink whale tail, and I'm 18, 17, 18, whatever. I can't not look at it. The hormones are running. It was the worst time I ever took it. It was like a 20. It's like, God damn it. And I knew exactly. I can't tell my parents why. It's like, what the fuck? You got X score first time. You just dog shit this up to them. Like, well, sorry, Dad. This chick with the whale tail was just right in front of me, and I can't stop looking at it. Like, I don't think you can blame me, but that's not a good excuse. That's not a good excuse at all. I think he'd almost be like, hell, I was hungover. I had a party last night. That might be more justifiable.
Yeah.
Man, I still think about that all the time. I think there's a strategy to that. Especially the bar, you want less people. If you're a lawyer, you want less people
to succeed.
Yep.
On that exam.
Yeah, it's also
this specific month, this one. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. There's strategy.
So here's a little political here.
Yeah.
I find it utter garbage that I can't just take the bar.
I agree. Don't even get me started. Do not get me started. But let's agree that is the pay-to-play game that this capitalist society has played forever.
Yeah.
Because I've been, as somebody that went through law school, the whole time I'm there, the thing that made my stomach turn the most is I'm in a free country, and they're saying that I have the right to defend myself when the state overreaches and wants to take away my liberty. Whenever they want to infringe on my liberty, let's just say for me, if I'm in any scenario, a cop's talking to me, some dude's trying to rob me, like whatever's going on, in a moment of stress or tragedy, besides the police, depending on its severity, the first place my mind goes is I look to my dad for guidance. Mm-hmm. Privilege of my life, I get it. Oh, yeah. But I would look to my dad for guidance, assistance, help, whatever. The fact that the state is reaching in to take my liberty, and I can't even let my dad speak on my behalf. If there's anybody that I would think has my best interest in mind and was truly fighting for me, the fact that that person can't fight for me unless they jump over this hoop, that ain't a free country.
No. Now, legally, can you represent yourself even if you don't?
Always, forever and always. Forever. But let's also agree there's a balance to that. While I believe what I purported wholeheartedly, the balance to that is, and I think you deep down will resonate with this, we are in a country of grifters. We are in a country of grifters.
How do you define grifter?
Somebody who's a snake that's just trying to make it.
All right.
A snake oil salesman.
Okay.
That's what I would define a grifter as. And so, or at least in this scenario.
Okay.
So, in a country of dog eat dog, this is a capitalist society, take it or it will be taken, you will have a real hard time policing people who swindle old ladies, desperate people, poor people. There's the difference between the thespian actor and the person or the orator and the person who's truly a legal genius that can actually help you. There's plenty of people that are legal geniuses that couldn't talk to a wall, but also that's why they have people that will go to court for them on their behalf. You know, there's the difference between the attorney that shows up in the courtroom and the attorney that does all the legal research.
Well, and practicing law in a courtroom is probably different than just practicing law. Writing a contract doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in a courtroom defending it's I guess it's a real specific case scenario. It's a
so what if you got a guy that's selling wills at a low cost, knows how to really work computer imaging and makes a nice graphic, the pamphlet looks amazing, sells himself like Better Call Saul, and little did you know, the dude's never done a will in his life. He just throws some legal jargon together, and it isn't until your grandma dies and your whole family's at each other's throats over the estate that you realize you got duped.
Yep.
So at least its intention is to standardize it in some respect. Yeah. Well, I don't think it's a good job at it.
So the way we govern ourselves probably needs to be standardized, because a lot of politics goes down to, well, how's the government going to enforce this upon me? So if you're going to punish someone, they have to know the rules of the game. So like what we have with like social media, like we just had a conversation about with Twitter. The rules are kind of vague because I'm not really punishing you. The punishment's to get kicked off platform, but I guess you could still use it, you can still interact with it. There's other ways to go around it. Where the government, they punish you, there's some serious consequences to that whole thing. But I just find it wild. So let's say the bar is the standard. That's what the government defines.
Right.
It is standard. You pass this, you're in. You can't do it unless you go to a university. Go to law school. I find that wild.
So let's agree. I think both of us, the middle ground to the conversation would be anybody can pick up that test. Anybody and their neighbor should be able to pick up that test and take it.
Yep.
Whatever means you need to get there
Yep.
and pass that test is up to you.
Yep.
The problem is you no longer have the monopoly through universities.
Yep.
Let me tell you this. I'd go to law school, and since day one, so you're there for 3 years, your first year, you're just a little freshman that doesn't know what the hell's going on, but since the moment you walk in there, you have bar prep companies that have been around for 150 years selling you on their bar prep program, and it's been the same companies. It's the same, like, 3. I could name them. Same 3. Yep. My uncle, who's a judge, pick an attorney, they've dealt with these 3. They're one of the 3 teams. I'm in law school in a new modern world. And the whole ruse of law school is you got to go home, and we're going to spend the next 3 months. You're going to go home and try to figure out what you need to know, and then you're going to try to memorize it and take this final. And it was nothing but hide the ball. And you got to try to figure out what the ball looks like and then describe the ball. So it was very helpful to live in a world where I would go to YouTube and there was this guy, Stu Dakota. That's the program. If anybody's in law school, Stu Dakota. This guy wholeheartedly got me through law school. I will die on the hill that this kid with a YouTube channel got me through law school. What was really cool was through those 3 years, it was happening when I found him. But over the course of those 3 years, he built a full-blown program. So he is now one of those competitors with the top 3. But he hasn't been there for 100 years. He doesn't have the groundwork. So he isn't in your law school because he hasn't cut them a deal. Yeah. So he doesn't exist to the university business. But to any layman that's trying to grow, I'm telling you, as somebody that did Barbary, which is it is the top of those 3, and then compared it to this kid's program, they're night and day. Just give me what I need to know, and I'll rock it. So here's what they don't want. They don't want some kid who can just make up a YouTube channel, do all the homework, and make a program that trumps all of the monopolies that have been here forever, and then kids can just go and ace the test, never sit in a law school classroom, never pay to the big boys that are cutting them in, and now regular peons, us dumbasses that they're trying to keep under their thumb, now they've got an avenue to take over the market.
Yep.
We can't afford that, David.
No,
come on.
No. Society would just crumble if that happened. Imagine everyone being more well-versed in law. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, more well-versed in law or people able to autonomously insert themselves in the marketplace. No. You got to jump through all these hoops where I get a cut every step of the way. Yeah. You ready to start this thing?
Oh, let's start.
I love to chop it up before, but you ready to get going?
Oh, let's get her going.
All right.
So I love that term, think tank. Think tank. I mean, you know what a think tank is? Like, how's a think tank go, James?
Yeah, they got cancel culture nowadays. You gotta watch what you say. It's getting real scary out here.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know if I can take the conversation here, but we might as well. It's the Rethink Tank. Looks like you had a little bit too much to think here in the Rethink Tank. Hey, what's going on, everybody, and thanks for joining us again. Today's episode, we're going to get a little contentious with people that would be put in the same box as us. You know, the basket of deplorables, believe it or not, might have different opinions from each other. And as in lieu of that, as a nice anecdote to the theme of the Rethink Tank, we're going to get a little challenged here, and I'm excited to introduce my guest for today, David Cunningham. How are you, my friend?
Oh, doing wonderful. Glad to be here.
This is a real treat because David and I have a lot of conversations that most people would assume we'd be in the same box. However, our conversations tend to highlight the nuance that makes these conversations worth having. And it's when you really get into the nitty-gritty that you learn and come to see how people can come out in different positions, even though we'd like to assume you're all the same. So in light of that, David has done the homework and has put together David's cold takes.
Yeah, my political cold takes.
And I've got an envelope, a slew of them. There might be, even because we had to chop it up at the beginning here too, there's likely that there's going to be a part 2 to this thing. But there's so many good topics in here, both social and political, that I'd really like to try to get to all of them. Now, why are they cold takes? Because to me, some of these are pretty hot.
A lot of my list making, I have a bunch of lists that I make for myself, and it's really just like, because I'm reading it back in the future, oh yeah, these are all political cold takes. Of course, who doesn't agree with this type of information here? Now, some of them I think a little spicier than others. You got to ham it up. You got to ham it up for the audience here. But definitely, I think a lot of these should. I wouldn't call it common sense because I don't necessarily like that terminology. But definitely, probably when you go down the middle, I think it's a little more broad approach. Especially with some of these a little more political. Some of these just kind of random thoughts and ideas that have maybe a little political twinge to them.
I love it though. I got to tell you, when I was putting these together, I was having nothing but a thrill. So, without further ado, we're getting right into the envelope.
All right.
We're doing random draws because, like I said, there's a lot in here, and I'd like to try to hit them all. Okay. Ooh. Starting off good. Anti-voter ID is the most puzzling platform the Democrat Party can be for. Their arguments do not hold up under scrutiny more so than any other position the Democrat Party takes. I'm going to leave you with the floor.
So we're starting off probably with my most extreme opinion, and I don't
Which is funny.
even.
I really want to say he does not have like a lot of topics against the Democrat Party. That isn't like the list. I don't want this to portray that's what this list is. But the man raises a point.
This one, my God, a lot of my politics do come from social media, a lot of Reddit. I love just reading political.
Well, let's agree that's the human hive. That's why.
Oh, absolutely. You get what other people are thinking about, get some ideas that I just don't think about, and see what's better and what's not. I think a lot of some of my politics, if anything, so the trope is you get more conservatives, you get older. God damn it, I feel like I'm getting more liberal as I get older. As I get older and as I kind of go through, and I think we'll see some of these in some of the points. I think you might. There's a Democratic twinge to what I have, but this one, oh Jesus!
I just want to say one thing before you get to your point.
All right,
because I think I can agree with you in a philosophical position, and it's that one. I think most of the people that are listening to this that would be stamped conservative, Republican, I think they're more liberal than the people that wear the Democrat jersey. Ooh, personally. That's my hot take.
All right.
I don't think a single person that votes Democrat is liberal to a person that is different than them. They're fascists. They want everybody to think the same, be the same, look the same, speak the same. And they don't like people that are different than them. So I agree with you in that I think the social narrative of as you get older, you become more conservative. What they mean is you align more with Republican Party policies, but because of that, you are innately more liberal. I say this all the time. I'm liberal in that I don't care who you're fucking or what you're smoking on your property. As long as it doesn't affect me on mine, I'm liberal to it.
Yeah.
So for the sake of this conversation, let's refer to them as either progressives or Republicans and Democrats, because I think they've taken a term, redefined it, commandeered it, and now they fight under the veil of good as they just push fascism.
Yep.
So I'm with you. Your statement is true. As we're getting older, we are truly becoming more liberal.
All right.
But we are not becoming more Democrat.
Well, I guess it depends. So, So I get what you're talking about. Liberal. Well, I mean, that's the first kind of phrase in libertarian. Liberal. And you get liberty. Liberty said. So yeah. Like the crazies, the extreme left wing of the Democratic Party. I like the term leftists.
Yes,
they
totally.
want to. They're very big on squashing your speech, having their way above yours, or just having a uniform way across the country. So with the voter ID thing, I hate it. Doesn't hold up under scrutiny. So part of it. You just got to be a citizen to vote. We need to prove you're a citizen to vote, and this is why we have identification. Now, some of the pushback I've seen is that voter ID should be free, and like having paying $25, $30, $40, $50 for your state ID, driver's license.
That is one of your cold
That is
takes.
why
So
that is one of them.
Let's combine the two. Wherever it is, I'll pull it out.
They do go hand in hand.
So there's two contentions our conversation here is going to confront. One, that ID should just be free.
Yes.
State ID should be free.
Yes.
And then your second position is that the anti-voter ID is very puzzling.
Yes.
So please.
So I think the ID being free, that's just poll tax. So, and why do we have identification? So we can exercise our rights as citizens. So the government can punish you or figure out who you are and or reward you, punish you, however they want to go about that. And that's, nothing else. Like the Postal Service doesn't exactly cost money to receive, or, it costs money to use like stamps and such. But when the government comes and contacts you, that service is very free to you outside of taxes, obviously. But definitely, there's no input. I am born. If I have a name and an address, the government will find me, and that's why the Postal Service exists.
Right, the Social Security system. You have a Social Security number.
Yes.
You are now a Jew in Auschwitz. You have a number.
Yep.
You
And that's
are
also
owned.
this is a whole other topic, but that's just an awful way to go about doing it.
Right. You're owned. We got you. You are property of America.
It's also did you know the Social Security number? You could just, the person in front of you and behind it, they're real people. Yeah. Those are real people. And you could legitimately find out who they are. If you really wanted to commit some fraud, you just go.
Wait. Can we also agree that I imagine their birthday is probably the same day, if not within a day?
I think there's,
right?
it's like birth date, region. There's a couple different things. Like the first, if I'm not wrong, the first 5 numbers are unique to whatever location or something you were born in.
So not only is it a kid with the same birthday, but he's also in Cleveland.
Yeah,
This is my dude.
Yeah, I could find out who this
Or
person
chick.
is.
We're like, am I wrong? You're
Nope.
within the same window. It's not like
You know,
this
I
dude's
don't know.
40 and I'm.
No, I don't think that's the case. I could be a little bit wrong, but this is someone you've probably met. You've probably met someone with a very similar Social Security number as you. And I'm surprised there isn't more of like an internet troll movement to try to find out who the Social Security number above you and below you is. there was a while ago where you could there's like a movement. It must have been, I don't know. I don't want to say pre-internet, but like rural Maine social media, like the pre-2000 or pre-mid 2000s, like 2010s, where you just texted the number in front of you. And the number behind you, like, who are you? Who is this person that is above
funny?
and below me? I'm shocked they haven't done that with Social Security. Even just like scam people. Shocked they haven't done that.
You know what I laugh at too? Do you remember bombing? Do you remember text bombing someone?
Oh my God, yeah.
That just died.
Yep.
Like that was a thing that we would do Like, for the kids that don't know, like, when cell phones first existed, you would send the same text 1,000 times, and that person's phone was unusable for the next, like, hour.
Well, you had so there's some phones didn't have it, but there's ones that you could, like, text the same thing to, like, 10 different addresses, and you could text the same number 10 different times, the same message. So there's some kid in my high school, this motherfucker, did this and just sent that. It's 5 minutes of his time. This is now just an annoyance on me for hours. God, what an asshole.
What a time in life, dude.
I hate that so much. So anyway, back to the voter ID thing. So
yes.
we create a world. So anyone who's like against showing a form of identification. It doesn't have to be driver's license. It could be passport. It could be state ID. It could be all sorts of like government sanctioned things. You got to prove to the government you are who you are. I just find this. Why is this political, controversial in any sort of way, shape, or form? And a lot of what
you want to know why? Because they have no faith in black people. When COVID hit, we had to say that COVID was killing all the black people because we keep them so poor in their poor communities that they're the fattest group of people. That's not me saying it. That's what the government said when they shut down the world. They went on TV and said, this is going to affect the black people the most because they're the poorest. And because of that, we've made them the fattest, which would make them the most vulnerable to COVID. And so they think you're fat. They think you're too stupid to get an ID. All of this is like, how are you saying this out loud?
And it doesn't hold up under scrutiny. So there's two prime examples. So you have the person who's too poor to get the ID. So in this world, this person probably has no job. They can't purchase alcohol because they don't have an ID. They can't purchase cigarettes. They don't have an ID. They can't go see an R-rated movie because they don't have an ID. So a lot of things they can't seem to do don't have a card.
But somehow they don't not have the bottle. Yeah. They don't not have. Do you know? Not to derail you, but as somebody that works at a court, we deal with domestic violence. We deal with a lot of things that are real. There is no crime that gets under my skin. Like, the crime that upsets me the most is driving without a license, without insurance, because June 15th, the first year I'm working at the court, I get hit by a guy that doesn't have a license, doesn't have insurance. Guess who eats the money? Yeah. The functioning member of society. Yeah. A year to the day, June 15th, then 2021. Another man in Garfield Heights, without a license and without insurance, hits my car. Guess who eats it again? Another same functioning member of society. So where we see this as a victimless crime, really at the lowest level, this is the most victimized crime. Real members of society are losing to you because you don't have the wherewithal or the focus or organization to get an ID, and yet nothing in this world is going to stop you from getting behind a wheel because it's your God-given right. And then you hit a functioning member of society and go, whoopsie, sorry, I just got out of jail, have a heart. Yeah, I lived it. So it's a balance. Yeah. The reality is, I want to live in a world where not having it actually does bar you from doing those things, so it would provoke you to actually get them. But I also, in the real world, realize you're doing it whether or not we want to stop you.
Yeah, and we want to live in a society. We hear that. We live in a society. We want that to be the case. So participate in it. Be a part of it. You know, who are you without your identification? I think you want your for a political movement and a political party that's very concerned about the personal truth of who they are. Why is that not on the forefront? Like, here's who I am. I
agree.
Even if I want to, change my sex or, be a different person throughout, we actually allow that. We allow that to be the case. Yeah. Although controversial, it is allowed. Why not make that? Why not embrace that you are who you say you are, and that is the truth right there. So we go on we're too poor to be able to do it, and I don't necessarily agree. I would like to see a program in which that helps people afford that. That'd be something I would help promote.
But let me ask, because I think this question is going to highlight where our ignorance is in this conversation. As two people that have the IDs and afforded them and everything else.
Yep.
What is the cost of an ID?
I think it was $25.
I was going to say, whether or not you knew the exact number, if you didn't, my point would be it's so minuscule that the dollar amount really, we paid it and it doesn't even exist to us because it was almost nothing.
Yep.
So I'm going to tell you right now.
All right.
The docket in my court that is the biggest prick in my back, the one that I have the least respect for, I have the least empathy for, is our eviction docket. Because that day, as I set up the courtroom, made sure everything was going, I was there at 7:30. I had to wake up at the ass crack of dawn. I was also doing it the 4 days before that. I did my job seamlessly, and that day it all went without a stitch. And here I am bringing you in on Zoom at noon, and you're half naked in bed, but you got a flat screen TV and a whole row of Jordans. There was somebody that, honest, real story, brought somebody in on a debtor's exam. That means they can't afford their fine and cost. Okay. So they're here trying to compel the court to wipe it away because I don't have the money. Mm-hmm. Poor me. The judge and her attorneys and the attorneys go in a breakout room, and it's just me and this lady, and she's in the Zoom frame with her husband. And she gets all excited. She goes, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, we just won our parlay." Ma'am, it's 9:30 in the morning. So in a case where she's trying to say, I can't afford life, please accept the fact that I assaulted my neighbor, but I can't afford the fine. She's on the record with no one knows, she doesn't even know, cheering that she hit her parlay. So I want to have a heart for the person that $25 cripples. Yep. But in a world where we actually live in reality, there are very few Americans that can't afford that $25. I'm going to leave you with one last anecdotal example. All right. Listen to Bert Kreischer on a podcast. This was a long time ago. The fact that I'm philosophically quoting him speaks to how sad this point is, but it's frickin' true. All right. Bert makes a point. He goes, when I was a kid, a homeless guy, all he needed to afford was my meal today. He actually didn't have to afford anything. There were zero costs at being homeless at our age when 20, 30 years ago. Yeah. There was zero cost to being homeless. Today, there is a very bare minimum cost at least affording my AT&T bill for this iPhone. There is not a homeless person without a smartphone. That means prioritizing the McDouble that will get me through the day today with that $1. Priority over that is my cell phone bill. Yeah. So I want to believe the crux of the position of it's crippling, but you need to sell me on the fact that $25 is crippling to the majority of humans. Yep.
Well, I go back to, again, it shouldn't be, it should be free. Absolutely should be free. Now, do I disagree that, personal responsibility comes in and you should be able to afford that $25? Or if voting in, participating in that type of society is important to you, then you should be able to prioritize that. Because that's the other half, the whole other half of my argument is I think it's a priority thing. The person who doesn't care enough to have the ID probably doesn't care enough to vote. They probably care about the outcome of the vote, but do they care enough to actually participate and be able to vote? I don't think so. The evidence doesn't support it when they don't have the ID. Everybody wants a political opinion, but nobody wants to do the political homework. I've been saying that forever. Yeah. So again, you don't need to read up on Camel Lady's politics. You don't need to read up on the dead guy that's running the country, Orange Man bad. You don't need to do any of that to actually have an impact in this country. At the very least, you got to wake up, even if it's at 2 p.m., go to a government facility and pay the $20 that would have gone to the dealer to the government for one time. If that's too much for you, you don't care about this enough. Yeah, you just don't care. You
So
care about
part
the
of
outcome.
me is, then I don't want you voting. I don't want you to decide. Like, it's become a popularity contest. The fact that Kanye's name is written down thousands of times in an election says to you that there are people that are not taking this serious. There are people that are not doing their homework. It easily could have been a monkey wrench in the gears as an FU because I hate both people that you've offered me. But at the same time, the fact that he's even in the discourse, I think to me, illustrates that there's a vast majority of the people that are not politically educated and are looking at this two-dimensionally, surface level. There's no depth to their understanding.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily care if they could throw away their vote. That's their right
That's
to
their right.
do. I just want to be able to, if they want the ID, if they want to be able to vote. I don't think there should be. I really don't think it should be a cost because it's in the government's best interest for you to have an ID also as well. I think that's the other half of that story.
I've been really attacking the anti-voter piece.
Yep.
But we've combined two of your points.
Yep.
And we're balancing it with it being free.
Yep.
Let me ask you this. Who should pay for that? And you would say us, the taxpayer.
Correct.
But let's get to the crux of the point.
Yep.
The people that you want to give an ID for free, which isn't us, because you and I, truthfully sitting here, don't know what it costs because it's so minimal, it doesn't exist in our world. For the two of us to pay for it in our sleep, that tells us that your policy you're trying to create isn't for me and you.
Nope.
But the policy you're trying to create is for the people where that $25 actually breaks them. Whether it's because they took that $25 and spent it on Air Jordans, or because they don't have $25 to even buy the food today, and you want to supply them with the ability to be a player in our government.
Yep.
I agree totally. But can you and I also agree that that person you're talking about and concerned about, that person, not me and you, the person we're giving the free ID, is not paying into the system that pays for that ID? Me and you are.
Yeah,
so we're paying for
not.
our ID and that asshole's ID. And also, I'm actually just waiting for them to leave our community. So, like, I don't need to make it more comfortable for them. I actually don't need them in my community. They could be 10 feet tall. They could be 2 feet tall. They could be purple, white, black, or orange. They could take it in the ass. They could love women. I don't care as long as they're a functioning member of society, fulfilling their end of the social contract, paying into our government. If me and you are paying into our government, I don't care that that government pays for shit for you. But if me is paying into the government, I'm going to start caring what that is paying for you.
Yeah. Well, it's also not the rules we live by either. So we have the anti-poll tax amendment, which I'm shocked just to having what you might be able to get away with it with driver's license because that's a little bit of a different, because that's not necessarily a prerequisite because you can have a state ID. I'm not actually 100% sure state IDs are free. I know you can get one, but I guess it doesn't matter if I don't agree with that person, and probably that person's voting against whatever either what I'm trying to vote for the most part. Yeah, that's just that's the rules we decide to live in as a society, and that's the. If we want to change the rules, to have that, I'm at least put that up to a vote. So that's I guess that's the crux of that. I don't necessarily agree with your disposition, but it's I guess I come forward as he's got to have it is a constitutional right. Your right to free speech is.
You make a very strong argument, and the argument is if you're going to create a policy that is an anti-poll tax. How is this not that?
Yep. That's the big thing.
The attorney in me that would want to make an argument, because I think you found something.
Yeah.
I really do. I think you found the scab to pick at here. If I needed to make an argument that at least attempted at refuting that, it would be that the crux of the anti-poll tax policy is that all American citizens can participate. All we are doing as a government is asking you to prove that you're an American citizen. There may be a $25 cost to that. I'm willing to make the argument that at the grand scheme of the average income of an American, that is a moot cost. But it's a cost. And I think you have presented that there is an argument to be made that you are now making there to be a cost to play in the game.
Yeah.
And if you're going to say that the Constitution says there's not allowed to be a cost to play, you're making a cost to play.
Yeah. Now,
but let's agree that the way at eliminating that cost to play is charging us to pay.
Well, yeah, collectively, yeah.
So again, is the cost the asshole or me and you paying for the asshole? The cost exists. Yeah. Eliminating that cost doesn't eliminate it, period, because a person needs to create them. There's materials involved. There is a cost. Yep. Who's footing the bill? So it's either the functioning members. I think the functioning members of society should be the ones voting. And if you want to vote, become a functioning member of society.
Well, statistically speaking, I think most of the functioning members of society at least have the ability to vote.
Can you find me a person that doesn't have an ID that is a functioning member of society?
Well, are they legal United States citizens or not?
Because let's also agree,
yep.
Most hot take I could make, when it comes to that border, we had a Mexican gentleman put in a side patio, our stone patio. Mm-hmm. And this man did it all by himself, worked harder than we had. It would place the patio before it, which was also a stone patio. He outworked the crew of people that were there before him, did it at a very reasonable price compared to the market. Mm-hmm. He outworked all of them. The coolest thing he did was my dad has never given a tip to a contractor ever. Ooh. Ever.
Wow.
Went out of his way to give this guy a hefty tip. And the guy quickly snapped back to my dad and he goes, "Do you know what I do with my tips?" And my dad goes, "No." He goes, "I give them right to my wife because most men turn their tips into their drinking money, and I'm an honest man, and I take care of my family." The guy... So he put in the stone. He had one guy come in to help him rip out the stone. This kid barely spoke English. He said to my mom when they were doing it, he goes, "I don't get this American way where everybody's living paycheck to paycheck, living in the now, just trying to feel good and spend it all." He's like, "I would rather live miserably for 10 years and stockpile it all. And then I'm going back home. I don't even need your place. I'm going back home and I'm going to reap the benefits of my work." Like, nobody has the long-term sight. He made a narrative to, there's no looking to the long term in America. And there's something to be said about my position when it comes to the border is we are competing with a government that's run by a cartel. Our government is also partially compromised by their cartel.
Yeah.
We should, if we were honorable and actually wanted to help people, we should go over, kick out the cartel, take over Mexico, and adopt Mexicans as Americans. Truthfully, that's my opinion. They outwork all of us. If you look at South Korea is the epicenter of the world economy because in a world where the economy has already been kind of flushed out, we now have a new territory that we can expand and blow up, and now it's the heartblood of the world economy. You could do the same thing in Mexico. Yep. I'm not some racist that says keep them out. I'm some human that's in a tribe, and the only thing I ask of is, can we please just adopt them into our social contract? Yeah. Give them all the welfare and benefits we have to offer insofar as they are also paying into the same system I am. That's the only thing I ask. Avail that to anybody and everybody insofar as they're willing to participate as much as you and I.
Yeah. I wonder how popular that would be. If you're to
it wouldn't be. That's why I'm in a closet by myself.
I don't know with the Mexican side. So you have a portion of the population that does want to go over willingly because they see the opportunity and the benefits of being an American citizen. You give them that opportunity. Hey, we could be now. At what point is that becoming? I
just want to make it clear
that
if you let that dude that pulled up a patio. If he could pay taxes and buy a $25 ID, He would.
He would. Yep.
He would.
Yep.
So you're comparing that guy to the person getting evicted, waking up at noon, barely clothed, looking at you on Zoom going, you owe me something.
Yep.
They're not the same. I want to fight for the guy that is not being recognized by our government, and I want to look at the schlub that's sucking us dry with a citizenship and, like Indiana Jones, in a sexy way, perfectly replace them.
Woof. That is a hot take. But where I come back on this is just, well, they are American citizens. They are equal rights under the law, under the way we do.
That
things.
hurts.
Yeah.
You have the freedom to be a schlub here.
You have a freedom to be the schlub, and I may not like it. I may not enjoy but you know what is this country founded on? Just being why do we have a whole lot of states? And some countries have states and like territories, but we have like self-governing states. Not a whole lot of places in the world have that. It's because when we first came here, there was a group of 10, 20 people who went, I don't like the way you're doing things over here. I'm going to go over on the other side of the mountains. I'm going to do things my way. Then eventually they just started to converge and have to kind of agree on it just due to border things. But I don't have to agree with the way everyone does the way things they do, but at least the inalienable rights outside or pre-government.
So let me ask you this.
Okay.
Who would you rather participate in your political arena? The person who feeds into your economy, provides services and goods, fuels money, collects money, spends money.
Yep.
Both ways, not just spending money that's given to them, but also creates their own money.
Yep.
So would you rather take that person, but just isn't a citizen? Would you rather that person participate in your political arena, or the person that has the ticket to the show, but sleeps in, doesn't have a job, doesn't have housing, can't raise a family, literally wakes up every day for Fortnite? Or whatever.
You do whatever. Yeah.
Hitting the 40 on the corner store. Like, my question is, who would you rather give the ticket to play?
Well, he already has the ticket to play. He has the ability to
Right.
to be able to come in the country.
Right. One has the ticket to the show, the other one doesn't. Yep. Which would you rather have the ticket?
This is I think that, Alex,
you're going to make the argument that both of them should have
question.
the ticket. But I want to say, in a philosophical debate, if you had to pick one over the other, who would you rather participate in your political discourse?
Well, my answer would be, I want the person who wants to participate, but you
That's good.
Well, you don't want the centralization of power. That would be if it's my decision. Power is too centralized. We need to divide the power up, even if I don't necessarily agree with it. That's the way it should be.
Cheers. But then, can I also push back? I agree with you.
Keep coming.
My sentiment agrees with you
Keep
totally.
coming.
But let's also, do you not fear the very real confrontation that it is very likely we're going to live the movie Idiocracy? Have you ever seen that movie?
Yeah, I've seen the movie.
Okay, so for the audience member, Idiocracy, if you haven't seen it, go see it because it's a homework assignment for our future. You have the first 5 minutes, I always say, describes it perfectly. I'm going to have to address that in a second. Dude.
Oh, there we go. I don't know if the Rethink Tank agreed with that position.
The universe was telling me to pump the brakes.
You might have slowed her down here.
When it comes to the first, so Idiocracy is perfectly described in the first 5 minutes. It first starts off with two attorneys, and they're sitting there and they go, hey, we want to have kids, but we're not going to have kids for a while because we want to be financially stable, and before we know, we want to be able to get a good household foundation before we bring a child in the world. And then it cuts immediately to a guy in a trailer park, and he goes, that chick's my baby mama, that chick's my baby mama, that chick's my baby mama, that chick's my baby mama. And then it cuts back to the attorneys 10 years later, and the husband's like, well, it has been 10 years, and we do have the financial ability to support a family, but at this point, we don't have the biological ability to have a baby. And the wife's like, what do you mean we? It's not my swimmers that don't work. And he's like, oh, no. And then it cuts back to the other guy. And now it's his kid who is a quarterback on the football team, and he's on the high school football field, and he goes, I just got the cheerleader pregnant. And the whole crux of the position is that the stupid people outproduce the smart people because the smart people are more timid. They're trying to build the perfect scenario where the dumb people are humping like rabbits and populating like crazy because welfare is going to take care of them and everything else. So in the same vein, okay, I agree with you.
All right.
Philosophically, as somebody that doesn't want government intrusion, I think you really did come up with a really strong position.
Cool. Appreciate it.
However, I want to keep that on balance with how do you still preserve that position and fight against a future that leads us right to idiocracy, where it's a world of morons and we don't even know that water, we can't get our crops to grow. And it's because Mondo, the Gatorade of their world, Mondo's what plants crave. And then this guy comes into the world and says, did you think about putting water on them? And they go, whoa.
You mean the toilet water?
You mean the toilet? The stuff from the toilet? So do you want to live in a world where we don't even remember how plants grow?
Yep.
And so those people can participate. They are your world, and they have a right to participate. Mm-hmm. But how do you combat them becoming the totality? And you would say, and I hate this being the default in this show, but the show is always the way out of the problem is education, right? Yep. And provoking people to not be that.
Yep.
Is there an answer that isn't education? It's always education.
Well, wait. So you take away the crux. So why is idiocracy in idiocracy? Because they're not having the education. So you're taking away the one reason why they're out of there. But where I come back on the idiocracy thing, although I think we see a lot of parallels in our everyday lives, that's also kind of saying that your grandpa, boy, he's real smart, and you're just a derivative of just a dumbassery that just keeps coming down. The founding fathers were all right, let's say they're the smartest people in the world. Compare to him. Ah, fuck, I'm dumb as shit. Don't deserve to be here. So I think the population is getting smarter, not dumber. And most of that is like the information that we're getting fed to us all the time. We may do dumb actions, and I think some of that's just the highlight of immaturity. Just showcasing maybe some of the worst of society. But I think when we look at, why are we seeing a rise in unions and the populace just kind of coming back and wants to take back that power? It's just a lot of that information that was once being withheld from us. Now that we were able to cycle through with social media, I think Indeed and areas you're able to decentralize a lot of, worker experience, like Glassdoor, I think is a really great example, and it's a really great tool. You're just able to educate other people on, this is what I was making here, so if you were doing this, you can kind of compare and contrast. I think on the individual side of things, I think what makes our society kind of crumbles it a little bit is the individual nature of, I'm going to get mine, fuck everyone else. That's
what's going to kill us.
Some of that's the problem.
Totally.
But when it comes to the individual, I think the individual is very smart.
But also what's crazy is that's the same thing that creates the evolution of the brain chip, the autonomous driving car, the cure for cancer. It always comes back to, you want to damn Bezos for how good he is at the game, but the game is the reason we have everything we have.
Yep.
So how do you make rules to a game and then punish people who won the game, that are doing the best at the game?
Yeah, I conflict with that as well. It's what's our generation's atomic bomb? What's the turning point of the whole world where we can't go back from this? Once that atomic bomb was not even used but made.
Dude, I think it's a bioweapon. And it might be because that seed was planted in me today. I was listening to a podcast, but just listening to their perspective. There's no way a bioweapon is not being cultivated currently.
Oh, yeah.
It just does. There's no way. We might have possibly experienced one, let alone it's definitely being cultivated. And did you know, I learned this today again, that the Chinese were actually more susceptible to the Wuhan virus because of a genetic variation. I don't know the biology of it, but they were more susceptible to it because of their receptors. So if you don't think a particular country can hack the biology of their enemies and weaponize it against them, and if you can perfectly craft a virus that is going to kill you, that for 2 weeks makes you contagious, but then also is not seeable or viewable or noticeable for 2 weeks, we are all dead.
Yes, but where I come back to that,
without a total utter lockdown, we're all dead.
Well, so let's just take how we would respond to it. Just prior to that, what's the incentive structure for just wiping out a whole country? I don't think there is a whole lot.
Ask Japan.
Well,
but I'm not saying they'd use it.
In
you
the middle
sit on
of
it
war.
like an atomic bomb.
Well, so it's going to be like
you
that.
make your weapon. You sit back like Oppenheimer. I, like God, have created the end of the world, right?
Yep.
But then the time calls for itself.
Yep.
These jerks hit our harbor, and we justify it.
Yep.
So it ain't now, but we're cultivating it now for when we need it.
Because there's no incentive not to have it. We'll just look at if Ukraine had the ability to use atomic weapons, they wouldn't get invaded. Wouldn't happen. So there's no two countries that have ever had nuclear arms ever invaded each other in full scale war. I think that's true. North Korea's not invading South Korea. They just constantly just throw up red flags all the time to say they will, but they don't actually invade. There's no invasion going on between two. Well, the trope used to be two countries, Walmart or McDonald's, ever went to war. Well, that's no longer true because Ukraine and Russia now have McDonald's, but it's
That's a thing?
Yeah, that was the thing. The globalism. That's one of the
I've never
benefits.
heard of that.
One of the benefits of globalism because the trade. Because it's just mutually self-assured destruction. So now my economy is tied to you doing well, or at least you having the people to be able to do well.
What are your thoughts on India convincing the UAE, the United American Emirates, into using the Indian...
Oh, taking off the United States from the
what is it?
petrodollar?
It's not. It's the rupee?
Yeah, it's
or
using,
something?
It's taken away. The United States dollar is the petrodollar. This is the only reason why
That's
modern monetary...
huge, dude.
Oh, very huge.
Especially UAE. I did a research project in college where I went to Oman and then Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And I would like some Japan.
You would like
too.
some
now I would like
nice
to. I've been waiting.
Japanese whiskey.
I brought the Buffalo Trace because it's podcast time. I have literally Buffalo Trace on deck because I couldn't get it when we were in the old chapter of the podcast.
So I got a hot
and
take.
we're being upgraded. Cheers, my friend.
I got a hot take for you on Buffalo Trace.
No, it's literally only famous because of Joe Rogan.
Well,
Go ahead and say
not
it.
even that. So in Ohio specifically, everyone talks about, oh man, if you like whiskey, I got a Buffalo Trace, got a bottle of Buffalo Trace.
That is so much better.
It's good.
No.
I don't even think it's one of the better ones.
Here's what I wish. You had this first, because I did. And to go from this to that, wholeheartedly, I can tell you this is better. I like it more. As a Buffalo Trace guy, I like the Japanese whiskey way more.
I want to treat my guests here. But Buffalo Trace. So I got a lot of friends that got into whiskey. I'm like, I got a bottle of Buffalo Trace. It's this all big thing. It's just because Ohio regulates their Buffalo Trace.
Exactly.
It's hard to get. I went to Atlanta for the first time that I was like into whiskey and they have a whole pallet of Buffalo Trace just sitting there for anyone to take. Doesn't everyone know that this is a special whiskey that you should have? And then come to find out, they're making this by the thousands. It's fine. It's good. But I think the cult classic, in Ohio specifically, is
right.
just because it's limited by the state.
And now, let's agree, it's much less limited today, 2023, than it was in 2021. As a result, there was a demand to try to get it. Now
yeah.
that I got it around, like before it was like, I'd go to a bar, I'm like, whoa, you got it?
Yeah.
Give me that. And even though there's much better things on your shelf, I just never get it. Give it to me.
I want that.
Now it's at every bar.
Yep.
It's once it becomes your regular shelf bourbon, you go, yeah, it's the same.
Yeah. I think it
It's
deserves.
good.
I think it deserves to be part of your regular selection. Absolutely. It's like Maker's Mark.
But now I have a buddy, shout out Steve Harper with Creekside Restaurants. Because of him and because I was so desperate to find it, dude, Buffalo Trace just falls on my lap. I think we'll forever drink it on this show because Joe Rogan fan couldn't touch it. Now my friend's a bourbon whiz, and he's just like, dude, here's your thing. And it's like, how about you give me some like E.H. Taylor or something? Dude? Like, give me something that like
give me some of the
matters.
good
Give me
stuff.
something that matters.
It's real hard to get. Oh, I got a whiskey story for you. So I went, I went to Japan for honeymoon. I had a buddy of mine who's real big into whiskey, and he's telling me, I got this special bottle I want you to get for me. I'm like, okay, all right, you show me whatever you need. Shows me a picture of Blanton's. Okay.
In Japan.
So you want me to get you a bottle of Blanton's? He's like, yeah. But it's just a special label that they put on there, and I ask him, like, is this distilled in Japan? Is there like some like flavor, like a flavor profile? No, it's the exact same Blanton's. Like they ship it over to Japan, and they put a different label on it.
You bought it in Japan and brought it back to America.
Motherfucking bottle. I went out of my way to go get it, and it was a pain in the ass to get. I knew there was a grocery store to get it, but you kind of have to wade through people. You got to go through the public transportation. It's not just I pull up parking lot, I'm in the Giant Eagle, I get it. It's a little bit of a hassle, especially if there's the only one spot that I know it's at. There's probably other ones, but it was the only one that I knew it was at. So I went and buy it. That's not a big deal, but I have to talk with the. I don't know Japanese, and I'm in a Japanese grocery store. And say, hey, I need. I'm pointing. I'm taking a picture, pointing, doing all this, and he's got to get out. And so we got to the point where all right, we got it, have it, good. And I bring it back, and he's all excited about it. Hasn't even drank it yet. I'm a little irritated about the whole thing.
You can't even try it.
Can't even try it
With you?
With me?
Sorry, friend.
Yeah.
But there's a bit of a principle to it.
I agree.
Like if you brought me the bottle,
yeah.
I'm a very principled person, so you don't have to say it. I will say it on your behalf. But if I went out of my way to get you a bottle, in a world where you don't think sorry. I didn't go to Independence, Ohio, and then back to Brecksville, Ohio. Let's make the position very clear. I went to Japan, the other side of the world, an island. If I bring it back, if you don't think I deserve, especially if it's Blanton's, something you could have gotten in Kentucky.
That's what irritates me the most.
If you don't think I deserve a glass with you, not that I deserve a glass. If you don't think you owe it to me and you don't want to have a glass with me, I don't want a casual glass with you almost ever. Am I a jerk?
You're not a jerk. We'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
So I tell him, like, there's
You're
all
a
these
nice friend.
There's all these wonderful Japanese whiskeys. Like, I have no problem getting you one. It's like, you want the one that you can get in the States? Because I made it a point when I'm overseas, I want to try everything that they can't. So the weird thing about Japan too is the bars are. It's not like they are here. That's the one
What's
thing.
different about them?
It's the one thing I hate about Japan. So part of it's just the language barrier. It's the language barrier. I can't just roll up to a spot and go, I'm just here for drinks, because a lot of them want to sell you food because the space is limited, so they can't just have a bunch of people around. And there's a couple places that are tourist oriented that do just that, but it's like an Irish pub. I'm not going to Japan to go to an Irish pub. I'm going to Japan because I want to experience Japanese culture and do all that.
I want to sit on the ground.
And unfortunately, that part of the culture just doesn't translate.
Like a bar.
Like a bar. Like
Really?
yeah. There probably is some. They're out there, but do they want to deal with me? No. They don't want to deal with me. It was very clear the Japanese did not want to try to cater to the tourists unless they're already catering to the tourists. Yeah.
See, what's funny is I've always gotten the impression that like Americans walk on water in Japan. And that isn't the case.
I don't know if I would call walk on water. Like, no one gave me a hard time, but there's definitely, like, if you're if you're not, there's probably just so let's just put it in our shoes here. So let's say there's like a French population. I can't speak French. I don't know anything about French, and we have a bunch of French people coming to our bar because it's popular with the French. I don't know. It's gonna start being annoying to just deal with that. Deal with French people, not because they're bad, but there's a language barrier. It's so frustrating. Totally. Even I have the best of intentions. I want to give you. I want to, in fact, probably overpay. So sometimes they'll do that. Every tourist place will do that. But I want to overpay to be here and experience what you have to offer. But because they're not catering to what I am or just my language, really it's my language, not anything else. They're just like, I just don't want to deal with you. Because the big thing in Japan.
So they would just straight up ignore you.
Not ignore. They'd always they treat you with respect. I don't think there's any spot they didn't treat me with respect, but they follow the rules. And there's rules in Japan. They love their rules.
Such as? What are those rules that they would respect? They would kind of neglect you.
So you go to a bar and you just like sit at a table, and someone will just come serve you and do all that. That's not how it works. Some places in Japan. A couple places we went to, we just sat at the table, and it's just the ignorance of not knowing what's going on, not understanding the culture. You just sit at the table, and they come up to you and they'd speak to Jeff, and he's like, I don't know what they're telling me. I don't know what they're telling me. This is just embarrassing because I'm probably doing something wrong. They're not handing me a menu. They're not saying konnichiwa. It's a stern face. Like, what are you doing here? Like, shit. All right, so I got to go back to the end of the line. It's bad. But
can I ask you something?
All right.
So when you told me, like, friendly conversation before this stuff, when you told me you were going to Japan,
yep,
and like how for your honeymoon,
yep,
and like how excited you were and everything else. To me, it seemed like, the way I interpreted it, you had to have had some, like, Japanese educational background, like something intimately called. You were just a tourist.
I was just a tourist. Oh, yeah, I like Japanese culture.
That is fascinating.
Like anime, video games, Godzilla. I got a whole leg sleeve. It's a Godzilla tattoo. So, big fan of that. Like, I love the things they produce, and I like the culture. I enjoy the architecture. It's a very beautiful place. But I am ignorant to the way their customs and norms. Because I care, but I don't. At a certain point, I almost wish it was a fake Japanese, and they actually do have these, but it's all kind of like hammy with like women. So they'll do, there's certain places in the tourist areas where they'll have like very beautiful Japanese women that speak very fluent English, and they'll try to entice you into the bar, and it's very expensive.
So that type of bar that kind of lures you in, is it more westernized?
Yeah, it is. And that's just not what I'm at this crossroads where I want to assimilate with their culture, but I'm just too ignorant to understand, and I'm not going to be there long enough to care enough.
Right.
So I'm at that crossroads. So that's where that's probably this is the first country I've ever traveled to.
No way.
Whoa,
time out. You've literally never left America. Like, you've never gone to Canada, Mexico?
Nope, never went to Canada, never went to Mexico. Went to Hawaii, yeah. But that's not.
Dude,
it's a little bit of a different culture, but not the same thing.
Ass,
yeah.
But, like, your ability, I'm afraid, this sounds very hubris.
Yeah.
As somebody that's really traveled to Europe, the Caribbean, Mexico, South America, I've been to Asia, the Middle East. I am afraid of Japan in that I'm desperate to go. Don't get that twisted. But to me, it reads as the most difficult society to navigate because they are to me, reading, outsider looking in, the most standardized. Like, everybody's the same. This is the way we do things. This is how society works.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be the cleanest place you ever go, but for a reason, and it's because they're all principled and standardized. I fear going in there knowing none of the standardization, the norms, and how life works. I don't know how to just sit down in a bar and be like, and they're looking at you like, like, man, you just threw yourself into it.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what's attractive to it, because it's like no place else I've ever been. So I want to go. So I want to go somewhere else.
Awesome.
I have no familiar. It's the only
But
familiar.
Japan is tough.
It's tough. It was the first probably about hour and a half navigating the trains, because again, I've only
Wow.
ever experienced the New York
Do
train
you
system.
or your wife Sierra, do either of you read or understand Japan?
No,
Or
neither.
Japanese, sorry.
Neither. She, in fact, did. I probably should have done a lot more than I did. I knew like 2 words, 2 phrases, and that was it. That's all
What
I
were the
had.
2?
Well, konnichiwa is good. And then
good.
whatever the term for beer was, I forget it now, but I had it at the time. But the one, like the big one, sumimasen. That was, and you gotta say it like a little like sumimasen. You almost have to have like a little like a feminine tone to the whole thing, just because it's just kind of how you'd say it. Because in Japan you gotta wave down the waiter. I hate that. I absolutely hate that. Wife's very good at it. I just couldn't. I'd sit there forever. I'd all right, there's my one drink. Good.
No way.
Yeah.
Dude, you know what I've been saying forever? My uncle taught me at a young age, if you get a really bad waiter or waitress and they're just blowing you off or they put you in the corner so like you're forgotten, he'll just raise his hand and he just sits there. And I'm like, dude, stop, please.
Yep.
But also, it works.
It does
And
work.
I've also wanted, like, because of that, I've wanted to adopt an American restaurant system where just, like, give me a flag. Like, I just pull up the flag, and then you know. Like, I know you know. I'm not going to be reaching for, ooh, but at least, like, hey, I've kind of notified you that, like, I'm looking for you.
So the Japanese got this figured out. Here's the best part. So certain restaurants have just like an iPad where you can just order whatever, and they just bring it out to you. There's no like I don't want to call it like not service, but it's just kind of like an A to B. It's
But
not.
you
They're not,
wanna
doing,
also
they're not
know
going
why?
out of their way outside of just what they're told to do.
Do you want to know why that job can be fulfilled with an iPad? Because they're a very small island where they don't need to find jobs for 50-year-olds that are done by 16-year-olds, right? Our dilemma is we've got 50-year-olds handing cheeseburgers out of windows, which is a job for a 15-year-old, and we're trying to make a living wage out of 15-year-old jobs. And so Japan's like,
All right.
there's enough of us to just make that an iPad.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. Mostly the point is I think it's just a cultural difference. We want to be served here, and I like being served. Don't get me wrong. I love being served. It's great. It's wonderful. Them, they don't care. That doesn't add value to them. And
But is there a person that's in that service industry, and I'm going to be a dick with this comment.
Okay.
I don't care.
Go for it.
But is there a person in that service industry that doesn't work at Ruth Chris that is a superior member of society? Like, they're really pretty fillable.
Well, I mean, it depends on how what you give value. I don't think there's
I'm not saying they're invaluable,
okay.
but I am saying there's a very clear value to it. And it ain't high.
Any job has value. Anything you
It's
do.
iPad value. And
Yes
if you
and no.
don't have so many people that you need to find jobs for, it becomes a kiosk. That's McDonald's.
Well, doesn't the market decide the value on that? So Ruth Chris, do you
Capitalism decides the market
think? Well, that's
on
the
that.
that's the market.
Profit.
That's the market. but does does your Ruth Chris customer want to deal with an iPad? I don't think so.
Heck no.
I don't think so at all.
Heck no.
But does your average customer maybe want to? Well, DoorDash. I mean, isn't DoorDash just
Cheers.
iPad doing that? And that's what the market wants. That's even if they order from Ruth Chris.
But then you are rolling the dice with a guy that's going to crack into your bag and steal a fry or sip out of your Pepsi.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that aren't going to those services anymore because they've seen the slew of videos that show the types of people that type the honor of that position is decredited by the schmucks that take it on.
Oh yeah. Well, isn't that with anything? Isn't the honor? So what's probably the most honorable position to be in? Yeah, it probably depends on who you are and what you're.
No, but you're right.
It's like
Look
college football coach, very honorable. You at least the people that want you to be there, a lot of honor there, a lot of stuff. But you could, at a turn of a dime, they can, I don't want you there anymore, or it's like teachers. That's what this is. Man, do I have a lot of respect for teachers? Yes. Is their job getting a lot harder? Oh yeah.
Yes.
Do we devalue them as
So let's agree.
as a society?
I like the main position you're taking on is that some of the most valuable people in our society are teachers.
Yeah, I think
They're with
teachers
your
have
kids.
value.
They're forming our youth. an invaluable position to a society. And I will die on the hill that those that can't do, teach. That was a saying when I was in high school and in grade school. And as I've grown up to live with the people next to me that we either went into professions, other professions, or we went into academia, those that went into academia, not a single one of them were higher calibrated than your doctors, your lawyers, your engineers, your salespeople. They are not higher calibrated. It's that the higher calibrated members of your society go towards other positions because there's a more financial incentive to do so. And as a result, teaching has become the forgotten profession, and those that can't do end up teaching.
Well, so what we talked about with the lawyer, like being a lawyer, so like being a courtroom lawyer is a different principle and a different skill set than being like a contract lawyer. Isn't that the same with teaching? So if you can't teach, you just maybe don't have that let's call it a killer instinct to be able to do, but you have that to teach.
Let's agree on this. There is a teacher that has changed your life for the better. There's a slew of them, I'm sure.
I think everyone has a teacher that's done some sort of impact to them, positive or negative too, because it cuts both ways. That's the unfortunate reality of that position.
So let me ask you this.
Okay.
Do you also have a teacher that you can agree probably should never have had their job, had a major negative impact, were unfit for the position? And the fact that the two of them are at the same level of professional consideration speaks to how there are people who it's in their nature to excel at this job and should have been there. Mrs. Crow, go check out that episode. She was on this podcast. She is, out of all levels of academia, my senior math teacher in high school, beat college, beat law school. She was the greatest teacher I've ever had. And if you put her on balance to the worst teacher I ever had in 8th grade, they came from the same public school system, were considered the same. They were both tenured teachers, so they both lasted. All I'm saying is, if you can have minnows in a pool of sharks, your pool is defined by the minnows. Doesn't matter how great the sharks are. You have the same pool has
strongest
shit people.
link is the strongest link in a chain, or the weakest link is the however that phrase goes.
Right.
Yeah.
The chain would be defined by your weakest link. I would totally agree.
Yep. So if we have that, for teachers, so I think the argument is you don't want the teachers to collectively bargain for unionship.
I don't mind that. I really don't. It's as long as you can counterbalance that with raising expectations. Because what you do find from unions is kind of like a suppression of hiring the standard. And I have you need to have some confrontation. If I'm going to impose on you, you need to have an entity that defends against that, and we can kind of stalemate to a middle ground. I'm not against unions, but let's also agree that, and it's on balance. I want to say that the unions have gotten too powerful to the point where they're protecting and defending people that shouldn't be there. Like, you should really standardize to the highest degree you can. At the same time, you've alluded to it. You've made mentions to it this whole conversation. But there's a reality to where academia is at today. And it's harder than ever for a teacher to teach simply because you've handed them the ability to be your parent for 8 hours a day, but then you've stripped them of that ability to be a parental figure, which they used to be 20 years ago.
There were some abuses on that end.
Yes.
And I think that's what the
caused that.
The unfortunate reality is you have, the bad apple spoils the bunch. So you had several. You're just at such a power position as a teacher that in our effort to wring back the power to not abuse children, we've stripped them of the power to have authority over the children. So it's, how do you? How do you?
You damned if you do and you damned if you don't.
It's a balance. It's absolutely a balance. Yes. We don't have spankings anymore in schools, which, so I'm not pro spanking in school because that's The government coming in and spanking your child, absolutely
Physically
not.
touching your kid.
Even if I spank my children, I don't want the government to spank my children. I'm surprised that ever, even in a way more conservative society, I'm surprised that ever flew. It's shocked that was ever a reality we ever lived in.
But the person that was spanking your kid was the pastor at your church. We were significantly more communal.
Yeah.
That, like, it wasn't just a stranger.
Yeah.
We were so much more intimate that it was like an extension of your community, and you respected their ability to be a parent just as much as you are. At the same time, though, there wasn't much individuality. Mm-hmm. You weren't allowed to be autonomous. There was much more of a uniformity to the way homes and families looked.
Yeah, it's unfortunately a different.
Let's
family
agree. Most of them
structure.
were white, right? Like, you didn't have this opposition of
maybe not necessarily white, but
how
like
does an
two-parent
Oriental
households.
family raise their family?
Well, two-parent households.
Well, but they all were two-parent.
Yeah.
In a world where they were all two-parent.
Yeah.
And again, I would go 200 years ago. Yes, you had immigrants. Mm-hmm. Most of the class was immigrants, white or not. But you had the majority of your community was localized from the same people, from the same place. You all shared the same norms. And I think what shook the bedrock was assimilating different peoples, different families. Mm-hmm. They all could have had two parents, but, homework prioritized over the racetrack,
Well, yeah.
And,
this is the thing I was thinking about when I was driving here is the bedrock for a country, the diversity of it, the diversity of thoughts and opinions. It's a double-edged sword. Cuts for us and absolutely cuts against us. So when you see countries like, let's use Japan, for example, they're a fairly assimilated country. They use a lot. Most of them have the same family values and not necessarily political opinions, but the same kind of how we want to structure ourselves as people of this country. They're very proud of themselves as that country. We're proud of America as a kind of an idea, but not necessarily as a way we do things.
Wow.
So you have
that's impressive. Yeah.
You could be patriotic and also very much disagree with everything going on here.
Yes.
And that's kind of the American experience.
I love that.
That's how we are. So it cuts for us and against us, and how you govern it.
That's how you could be a person that loves this country but calls patriotism racist.
Yeah,
it's so easy.
Just like I say, like AOC, I think she's a patriot. I think she appreciates American values and how we want to do it, but very much disagrees on how we get around that. So we have two different opinions on how we go about, like, on the political spectrum. But I think she's got a point. We're fighting kind of for the same side a little bit, because you see, 4th of July, I don't see a whole lot of Democrats going, fuck this country, fuck this, fuck the leadership, fuck how we govern ourselves, fuck all that. But as an American, all right, I'll throw the American flag out there, because I think the hate America thing might be a little overblown. I think it's more of like hate how we govern ourselves and how we just participate in society and how we hate for the other side.
See, here's the thing. I think a well-articulated, educated person like yourself, that's the nuance.
Yeah.
That's how you present it. That's how you see it. But then in a community where the masses is the community of idiocracy, you are taking the position that I don't hate America. I just hate how we're governed or how this government is approaching it, but I love this free place we get to experiment in.
Yeah.
But when you say, I hate America or dislike the government or however you want to phrase it, the idiot that is the mass internalizes it as, I hate red, white, and blue, internalizes it as those that push the Star-Spangled Banner, they are racist, hateful. Like, you can default to that because you don't live in the nuance. That your whole internalization of that position isn't that, come on, we love the ability to debate and scrutinize the government, but we love the ability to do that.
Yeah.
So, like, we love this ability to debate it. It makes it special, and I'll be the first to point out where they fall short. But I got to say I love it overall because I can point out that they fall short. These people are interpreting your ability. Your position is, I'm just saying they fall short, but I love the fact that I can say they fall short. And they hear you and they say, he's just saying he hates this place. I hate this place too.
Yeah.
It's because I don't like that we live in a world where everybody's two-dimensional and shallow. And so the masses take the tagline into a whole different direction where the crux of your position actually has a lot of value, and I totally agree with.
Well, has this conversation become too nuanced? Have we not broadened it out to where the majority can understand it, or at least it speaks to a very wide audience?
I think an audience member, totally. Yep. The sad part is the person that is in the masses that we're talking about, they're still asleep, dude. And they're only going to wake up to get that 40 at the gas station to numb themselves to forget they're here again.
How do we take that and make that a broad range? Like, hey, this is for everybody. This is how we all want to do it, and it's not just the conservatives or the Democrats or the liberals. To be able to just, I want to restrain that. I think that might be the problem. If it takes nuance, it's like in politics. If you're talking, you're losing. That's why I don't think all right. So as a side note, that's why Robert Kennedy Jr.
Yeah,
I don't think it's why he's not winning. 'Cause he's talking too much, speaking too much.
Really?
This is a hot take. Yeah. So when
I'm interested.
So if you're terminally online, internet brained, well, yeah, I want the politician to constantly talk and have transparency over everything. I think everyone wants that. But then when you start having him talk and speak his mind, just like the policies on Twitter, when Elon Musk started making it a lot more transparent, people started hating it a lot more. It's that odd balance where I think if you're talking too much, it takes too much effort and energy to be able to actually go understand it, have the nuance, appreciate it. It's like almost like a fine wine or a fine whiskey to understand.
But you're
the
opening
flavors.
the door for incredible scrutiny.
Yep.
It isn't rooted in anything other than two-dimensional.
Yeah. So I think the beauty of Trump, he made it easy to digest. Made absolutely very, very easy to digest.
So right.
He's not talking in depth about a lot of his policy. He's taking broad strokes and he understands. I think there's a lot of complexity in the simplicity that he says things, and it's that aspect of it. There's a very fine art to do it, and I think he's mastered that art, at least politically speaking, on that end. Because you have Ron DeSantis, he'll go into policy. I love that. Give me the policy. Give me all of that.
Yeah.
How you're going to govern, how you're going to do that. That's what I want to hear. But at the end of the day, maybe that's the wrong approach.
So let me ask you this. I'm going to keep that. That's a good inquiry.
All right.
Keeping it on balance with, I work at a court where there's two judges.
Okay.
One is very politically motivated, has only been politically motivated. I could never imagine them taking on a show like this.
Mm-hmm.
My uncle is also a judge. He's my uncle.
Mm-hmm.
I could never ask him, even though he's done. In 2 years, he will never be running again. He will never be on the bench. He's literally done.
Yep.
He won't sit in that chair.
Nope.
But there is another judge who is a real human being, and that's why they really should be a representative.
Mm-hmm.
Is they wear their heart on their sleeve. They don't play the political BS. They're just trying to be a human and do good for other humans.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to come on my show.
Yeah.
He wants to sit here and chop it up and have a real conversation. And one of the things I am eager to bring up to them, for this reason, I am of the belief, one, a judge should not be politically affiliated, period. You're supposed to be neutral. You're supposed to be based on the black letter law and not a politic, not a party. You should be speaking for the law and not for your party. But if I'm voting on judges, that means I'm looking at people that will judge that I, one, think is the best educationally or socially rooted, but also would support my interpretation of the law or judgment. Why would I not want to hear? Because if I'm voting on literally an R and a D next to your name, and that's the only thing I know about you, why would I, that world versus why would I not want a world where I get to hear you as much as I can? There's something beautiful to ours is long, but like I love Joe Rogan's show because you got to hear Elon Musk for 3 hours. One of the most powerful people in the world, unedited. It doesn't matter how many times you take a clip of him making a weird face as he smokes a joint. It's out of context, and it has no impact because it's a snippet of a 3-hour bit that explains it all. And so to me, more than an R and a D next to your name, the best way for me to truly know who you are, because you're going to slip up. Let's take Mark Zuckerberg. Do you know how many millions of dollars, or at least thousands of dollars, were spent on training him for Joe Rogan's podcast? Do you know how many coaches were explaining to him, sat him down, spoke him through how to be on Joe Rogan's podcast? This is how we conquer for Facebook's sake. And yet he still goes on that show, and the 3 hours is defined by a 30-second snippet where he accidentally admits that they corroborated with the FBI. Okay?
Well, did he accidentally, or he was just being true?
No, he was just being exactly.
It was just being
you
true.
can't help but be a human being and be real in a long-form conversation where people are just being. If I'm talking to you, no matter how much of a show you're putting on, if I just continue to come at you as a real human being, vulnerable and empathetic, your walls are going to come down, and you're going to accidentally slip that you are working with the FBI. And that shit only comes out in a long-form conversation where I force you to be vulnerable.
So it's a double-edged sword. That's the
Boom.
the transparency. I love the transparency. I want to hear every politician have a 4-hour podcast on their thoughts and beliefs and go into in-depth detail, and I want it to be scrutinized. But the reality, I don't. Is that beneficial to that politician? Probably not. And those that don't do it,
Boom, and that's why they don't do it. It's not beneficial to them, but can you agree? It's beneficial to us, the
absolutely.
audience.
Transparency is never a bad thing. It may be bad for you in the short term, but it's not necessarily. You don't want to be hidden from anything.
Can I ask you a direct question that's kind of derailed from this?
Direct it.
Do you think, because I've been really sold on the Tulsi Gabbard train. And here's a person that speaks on long form a lot. She's on a lot of podcasts. She's got her own podcast. She's always on shows talking. It seems to also have what's damned her from her political party and has caused her to jump ship. Do you think she has spoken too much? Do you think she would have benefited from quieting down? That would have forced her to assimilate and get in line in the Democrat Party, and she wouldn't have been able to be her own independent that kind of resonates her above the rest. So I'm curious, to me, I'm the most sold on this woman, and I've heard her speak the most. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's hurt her? Because on the grand scope of things, she doesn't exist. No. To me, she's my whole world. To the political landscape, she's kind of forgotten.
Yeah, pretty much since she's changed parties, that was probably the highest high she had. As far as just like notoriety, I don't necessarily if it was positive, but it was notoriety all the less. We just see this pattern. The more you speak as a politician, and you're not, I wouldn't call Tulsi Gabbard crazy. So, Marjorie Taylor Greene, there's not a microphone that she doesn't know how to talk to.
Right.
She'll talk to anything. It doesn't matter. She'll spout it out. She has her own podcast, and she seems to be very popular. So what's the difference? Is the message just are we talking to a political party that kind of wants to just be told what they want to hear, and not told what they maybe believe. Like, is there some contradictions? Like the Conservative Party. So conservative, everyone in the Republican Party, are they actually abiding by conservative politics, or are they just another cog in the political machine that pays homage to conservative politics? And I could say the same for the Democrats, like Biden. Working class, all about it. He went real hard in Pennsylvania because he's from Scranton, Pennsylvania, or like right around that area, and shut down the train union. Do we say one thing just because we want other people to hear it and other listen to it, or do we say another thing because that's politically appropriate and I can get that? This is why I think AOC, it's actually a pretty good politician in that regard. She's a little hypocritical, a little bit. I won't deny that, but definitely I think she speaks truth to power probably a lot more than I think the Democratic Party
that's
would want.
That's the sexiest part about her. That's the only thing that really.
That's the only thing. It's the only thing that's sexy about her.
And then she's also very sexy.
She's attractive. There's no bones about it.
Listen,
I'm not afraid
a president that surfs and looks good while they do it.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong saying she's attractive. That doesn't bring, that's not the only thing that brings her value, but she's easy on the eyes. Whatever. So her early career was definitely spoke a lot of truth to power. She sat, I think real early on, she camped in front of Nancy Pelosi's office door to have, I don't know what the policy was. I don't remember what it was, but camped just so she could have it out there. I want more of that. That's why I think like Nina Turner, she would have done more of that. Chantel Brown, not doing any of that. Chantel Brown is essentially a millennial politician that doesn't. What's Chantel Brown's most controversial opinion that isn't just right in line with the Democratic Party?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Yeah. And I follow her quite a bit.
Really?
She doesn't have any. So, okay, the Democrats want to take away assault rifles. They want voter ID laws. Okay, well, that's not. What's unique to Chantel Brown? Nothing. It's a Democratic talking piece. Whatever. Nina Turner, she'll go all sorts of different sideways.
Yeah.
She'd nationalize the whole country if she could. Good on her for it. And I voted for her. I voted for her on that. Like I don't agree with her politics in the slightest fact. There might be the overlap between me agreeing and her not. It's not. I don't think we agree on a whole lot, but she would have been a bulwark for the political movement. And I think that's the ultimate promise of Trump that I don't think we really got. I'm just going to throw this cog in this machine and see what happens.
Right.
Is he going to blow this whole thing up?
That's what he promised to us, and he gave none of it. Again, I say this all the time. There is nothing at this point that has me convinced Trump isn't controlled opposition because he did nothing to actually oppose. To actually oppose.
Yeah.
He perfectly spoke in a way that made him look racist, but then also to his constituents look like the guy. Yeah. And so depending on the lens you were looking at it, he was both. And I think he left a lot of his supporters out to dry and look like fools. I think he never actually accomplished a lot of what he promised, strictly because that's part of the show. He's the one that was hanging out with Epstein. He's the one that appointed Alexander Acosta, who is the prosecutor. He brought in Alexander Acosta into his cabinet. Alexander Acosta was also the prosecutor that gave Jeffrey Epstein the greatest plea deal in American law history. So something's fishy here.
Yeah.
The fact that everything about him is almost there. Like, I'm going to almost change policy and affect what I promised, but also I did none of it.
Yep.
To me, I think there's more evidence that he's controlled opposition than he's actually here for us, but then also the machine is so compromised, and people do have Trump derangement syndrome. That is real. People are sick. So if you don't think there are people
it's on
that
the opposite end, too. There's Trump loving
obsession syndrome.
It's
sure. But I also think you are only motivating people to obsess themselves with him if he's a tool that upsets you. Mm-hmm. There are more people that are voting for him not for the better, but because I don't like you. And this is the thing that you hate.
Yeah.
That shows no value for the public and speaks to why I think he's controlled opposition. Do you have any wrapping thoughts as we conclude? Because what I laugh about is I have an envelope
Well,
of
let's
badass topics,
throw
and we literally got to one.
We got to two.
We got to two.
Don't sell yourself short.
Two combined.
Well, how about we end with the topic?
Well, dude, we are thick into this. So let's wrap, and we'll do a part two. We're going to do a part two, if that's cool.
Part two.
All right. So, guys, I appreciate it. If we made you laugh, if we made you think, the best thing you could do to support this show, like we say always, is to share this episode. If you liked it, that means somebody else you know's got to.
Please
I said, we're fighting
comment,
algorithms.
and subscribe.
So, exactly. So take that link, send it around, text it to people, post it on your stuff. That's what's going to promote the algorithm the most. Again, though, if you want to find all of our content, you can find it at our website at www.rethinktankpodcast.com. I lost a phone in a lake in Austin. I'm just going to leave it there.
You were telling me
so I have a slew of professional pictures for our new summer merch attire that just totally lost. Which has slowed up the release, but I'm going to use this opportunity to exclaim, check out our Rethink Tank golf polos. We've got Rethink Tank baseball tees, the 3/4 sleeves, and then the deck of cards are coming because I bought custom Rethink Tank deck of cards. Don't know how to read fine print, maybe not a good attorney, because they were pinochle cards, and to me, to come to find out, it was a deck of 48 cards, and it had 8 9s, 8 10s, 8 jacks, 8 queens, no 2 through 8. It was world-shattering.
I don't know if you're a good contract player.
So, no, not so. I would agree. So now I've made a nice donation to the Cleveland Pinochle Club. So the decks of cards are coming, but we've got the polos and the tees. But like I said, guys, you can find all of our content on our website. You can follow me at Gergat57 or the Rethink Tank at @re_think_tank.
Well, before you're done, I got one more thing.
Please.
One more thing here. I think we should put out a hit on this iPhone. In the Austin Lake. What's the lake in Austin called? What's it called?
Lake Travis.
Lake Travis. And you said you lost it right near
near the pier.
Right near the pier. I think
you know,
should
a
have
scuba
a hit
diver. Yeah, exactly. You know, a scuba diver.
Yeah.
That's right where there are people that make bank scuba diving that lake.
Yeah. So I think you should put a hit out. Anyone who finds this phone
gets a free golf polo.
Oh, you give them the whole gambit. Golf polo, deck of cards, and make sure it's better. It better be the
52 deck.
The 52 deck of cards. Get
None
the
of that
whole
pinochle
gambit.
crap.
Someone's able to find that. That's a supporter for life. You probably have that guy on the podcast.
And you'll get a bottle of Buffalo Trace.
Oh, he's adding to it. You got any more? You
get one piece of moss.
Anywhere you want on the moss.
Anyway, guys, if we made you laugh, we made you think, please share the link. Otherwise, we'll catch you on the next episode.
You have a good one.
Peace. My friend. Let me shake your hand. That was so delicious. That was so good.